Hey, I'm Charlize. I'm a life coach, a mom, an animal lover, and more. I help women dream big and take action towards their goals to create a life they love. Think of this as my virtual couch where we talk about topics like self-growth, motherhood, and more. I strongly believe when women are empowered, we come alive. Allow me to be your confidant, professor, cheerleader, and hype girl. Grab your favorite beverage and get ready to be empowered and encouraged. This is the Moment Podcast. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Moment Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. On today's episode of the Moment Podcast, we're talking about why it's important to let go of perfection and why good enough is good enough. We live in a society that values perfectionism and achievement above all else. But sometimes good enough is good enough, right? And we're constantly bombarded with messages that tell us we need to look a certain way, we have to have a certain job, be a certain weight, act a certain way to be accepted. I could go on and on. But the problem with perfection is that it's unattainable, and you're striving for something that is frankly not realistic. No one is perfect, right? And so trying to be perfect is just setting yourself up for disappointment. There are so many benefits to letting go of perfectionism, including reduced stress and anxiety, and improved mental health, improved physical health, and just a certain zest for life, more time for life. You are approaching everyday things from a different perspective because you no longer are holding yourself to this standard that is unrealistic. So we need to make good enough good enough. And so instead of striving for perfection, I think we should strive for good enough. And a lot of times people tell me why just like good enough, but good enough is attainable and it's good enough, right? So if perfection is unrealistic and there's no such thing, then wouldn't that make everything else good enough? It can be difficult to let go of perfectionism. And again, because we are often taught that anything less than perfection is failure. But if you're struggling to let go of perfectionism, I wanted to give you some tips to kind of help you get started, because this is something that I personally struggled with as well. And as we are in a new year and we have all of these new goals and ambitions, I want you to enter each day with less of a burden than what you had the day before. So here are some tips, in no particular order, but here are some tips to help you let go of perfectionism. And if you're a notes-taking person, kind of like me, I suggest you get out a pen and paper or pull out your phone so you can record them, write them down, and then refer back to them later. If you're driving, please focus on the road. All right, so tips to let go of perfectionism. Tip number 1. Remember that nobody, and I do mean nobody, is perfect, and that is good enough. 2, focus on the process, not the end result. Focus on the process, not the end result. This one in particular was really difficult for me because I am someone who is very ambitious. And so for me, it's always about like the end goal, the end destination. What am I trying to reach, get or whatever. But it's always about that quote final point. But in reality, a lot of the things that have made such an impact in how I see myself, how I see other people, how I move through the world, and just how I carry myself has been an embracement of focusing on the process and not the end result. Tip number 3, don't compare yourself to others. I know it's easier said than done. Trust me, I know. Number 4, learn to accept mistakes and imperfections. If you make a mistake, it's okay. I'll say it again one more time. If you make a mistake, it is okay. Which leads me into tip number 5. Give yourself permission to let go. Just let go. Just let go. Tip number 6, embrace the saying, which I love this saying. And another entrepreneur actually says this as well a lot. Her name is Jenna Kutcher. She does not know me, has no idea I exist, but I love her. And the saying is, done is better than perfect. And that is something that I have been trying to embrace in 2024 and 2025. Yes, I'm thinking about 2025 because your girl got goals, okay? And then I'm just going to review them again one more time because I feel like sometimes you need to hear things 2 or 3 times for it to like really sink in. You know what I mean? So we'll go back to the tips. Number 1, remember that nobody, and I do mean nobody, is perfect. And good enough is good enough. Tip number 2, focus on the process, not the end result. Tip number 3, do not, I repeat, do not compare yourself to others. What's that quote? Comparison is the thief of joy. I'm pretty sure Eleanor Roosevelt said that. If she didn't, or if she did, if you know this quote, let me know. But just please do not. It'll just save yourself so much headache and stress and anxiety. Tip number 4, learning to accept mistakes and imperfections. We are imperfect beings. We are human beings. We are going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Mistakes do not mean that we're bad or evil or something is wrong with us. Mistakes are a part of life. Embrace them. Number 5, give yourself permission to let go of perfectionism. Tip number 6, embrace the saying, done is better than perfect, okay? And that's all I have for you for today's episode. And I just wanted to again, let's start this new year off on the right foot, mindset-wise, right? And if you're really curious about something that I'm going to try to start doing this in each episode. And I'm going to share something that I'm currently doing. So it could be anything from currently, cooking, currently obsessed with, currently watching, currently reading, anything. Just to kind of, so you feel like you kind of know me a little bit better, because I don't know about you, but sometimes when I follow people, I'm like so nosy that I really just want to know like all about their life. So if you're like me in that regard, here are the 2 books that I'm currently reading. One is a nonfiction. It's called Facing Love Addiction by Pia Melody. It was recommended to me by my therapist. And then the fiction book that I'm reading is called The Inmate. And that I actually saw from a influencer that I follow. And she recommended this book. And so far it's been pretty good. It's called The Inmate by Frida McFadden. And it's my first book that I've been reading by her. So I am really enjoying it. And so I highly recommend both of them. And so that's it. So thank you for listening. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Moment Podcast. Pretty pleased with the cherry on top. Consider joining my email list. I promise I won't spam you because we all hate that. Click the link below to join. Alrighty, well that is it. Time flies when you're having fun, right? I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Moment Podcast. Remember, I'm always sending sunshine your way. that is it. Time flies when you're having fun, right? I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Moment Podcast. Remember, I'm always sending sunshine your way.